Hello! Teacher Jasmine here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new, take a quick second and hit that subscribe button down below and the notification bell so you know when I'm posting. And don't forget to like this video. So in today's video, we're going to be learning how to write a letter in Spanish. And I'll give you all the tools that you'll need to know to write a letter. And don't forget to look out for those red highlighted words. And you can also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram information is over here and in the description box below. Without further ado, let's begin. So first we will review how to write the date on your Spanish letter. So when writing a Spanish letter, to write the date, it's a little different than how you would normally do it in English. In Spanish, you would reverse the date and the month. So, la fecha, the date. Fecha, date. Okay, so in Spanish, we will first use the day, then the month, and then finally the year. So for example, today's date is July 4th, 2020. We would write this way. El 4 de julio de 2020. We would use the day of the month first, followed by the month, Julio, July, and then finally the year, 2020, 2020. And then you notice Julio is spelled with a lowercase j. So in Spanish, the days of the month are written in lowercase. Great job. Now let's review the different ways you can address the recipient. So in English, you usually use the term dear when you start a letter. In Spanish, there's a few different ways you can do that. So let's look at some examples. So the formal way to use dear in Spanish could be estimado or estimada. Estimado, the masculine, estimada, the feminine. And this means esteemed in English. But in writing a letter, it can also mean dear. Another way to begin a letter, you can begin it with querido, masculine, or querida, feminine. This is another way to say dear. But this phrase, it's usually used to express endearment. So you would use this phrase when you are writing a letter to a friend or a relative. Now for informal ways to write a letter, we can simply write hola. Or we can use the recipient's name. So in our letter examples, we're going to use the name Ana for our recipient. Let's review using the greeting estimado or estimada in a Spanish letter. So in English, we normally would just say dear Mr. or dear Miss if the woman is single, or dear Mrs. if we know they are married. So let's use Smith as an example. Dear Mr. Smith, or Dear Miss Smith, Dear Mrs. Smith. Now, in a Spanish letter, this is how we would write it, using the greeting estimado or estimada. Estimado Señor Smith. And you can use the abbreviation SR, Señor. For the female version, Estimada Señora Smith or Estimada Señorita Smith. Now, when writing a letter, you never want to assume if the person you are writing is married. So if you do not know, always go with using Miss, or in this case, Señorita, SRTA for the abbreviation. Good job! Now let's review how to use the greeting querido or querida. So like I had mentioned before, we use the greeting querido or querida when we want to express endearment to the recipient. So here's an example. Querido for masculine, Juan. Dear John. Or we can say querida for feminine, Ana. Dear Anna. Another rule to remember in Spanish is if in our letter we're writing to two recipients, we would use the masculine form queridos. So here's the example. Queridos Juan y Ana. Dear John and Anna. Well done. Let's look at some examples of other formal ways you can begin a Spanish letter. The usual English phrase that you would use when writing an English letter would be "to whom it may concern." Here are two different ways you can write that in Spanish. A quien pueda interesar, or to whom it may interest. And then a quien corresponda, to whom it corresponds. Again, these are other ways you can say to whom it may concern. And here are two new learned words. Interesar, interest, and corresponda, correspond. Very good. Now we will review what we can include in our Spanish letter. Here are some phrases. So first we're going to review our informal letter. We can use the phrase, te escribo porque, or I'm writing you because. And another phrase we can use is, me quería comunicar contigo sobre, I wanted to touch base with you regarding, and then you complete the sentence. And here's our two new learned words. Escribo, to write, and comunicar, communicate. Now let's look at some sample phrases that we can include in our Spanish formal letter. So in a formal letter where you want to include something, you would normally say, attached, please find. Here's how you would say that in Spanish. Adjunto encontrará. Attached, please find. Here's another phrase that you can use. Gracias por su asistencia con este asunto. Thank you for your assistance in this matter. Let's look at our final example. Por favor, no dude en contactarme si necesita más información. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you need more information. And here's two new learned words. Adjunto, attached, and asistencia, assistance. Good job. Finally, we will review how to end a Spanish letter. Let's start with the formal ways we can end a letter. So the most common way to end an English letter would be using sincerely. In Spanish, you would say atentamente, sincerely, atentamente. Another way you can end a letter is by saying cordialmente, or cordially, cordialmente. And here are some informal ways you can end a Spanish letter. You can say saludos, or best. Espero saber de ti pronto. I hope to hear from you soon. Or hablamos pronto. Talk to you soon. Now we will write a formal and informal letter. Let's practice. So let's go ahead and set the scene for this letter. We will be writing to our friend Anna, whom we haven't heard from in a while, and we're going to invite her over for a little party this weekend. Let's begin practicing how to write this letter. Let's start with the date. Today's date is July 4th. How would we write that? Do you remember? Good job! El 4 de julio de 2020. So we've got the date. El 4 de julio de 2020. So being that it's an informal letter, we'll just go ahead and say, Hi, Ana, or Hola, Ana. We can then ask, How is she? Or ¿Cómo estás? Let's include that in the letter. So remember, when we begin a question, we do an upside down question mark. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and say, it's been a while since I last heard from you. Or we can say, ha pasado un tiempo desde la última vez que hablamos. Let's go ahead and write that. Now we can ask her, will you be coming to my party this weekend? ¿Vendrás a mi fiesta este fin de semana? Let's go ahead and write that. Then you can finish it off. I would love to see you. Me encantaré verte. Let's put that in. Me encantaría verte. Then we can finish it off by writing, talk to you soon, or hablamos pronto. And my name, just me. There's our informal Spanish letter. Way to go! Now let's set the scene for our formal Spanish letter. Now in the Spanish letter, we're going to write something simple as, attached, please find my resume, and let me know if anything else is needed. Do you remember what the word attached means in Spanish? Good job. Adjunto. Let's go ahead and write this letter. And as always, we will begin by putting the date, July 4th, 2020, or el 4 de julio de 2020. Then we will write our greeting. In this scenario, we will just simply say, to whom it may concern, or in Spanish, a quien corresponda. Let's write that. Then we will write, attached, please find my resume. Adjunto encontrará una copia de mi currículum. Then we can finish off the letter by saying, please do not hesitate to contact me if there's anything else that's needed. Por favor, no dude en contactarme si necesita más información. Let's go ahead and put that in there. All right, then we will finish it off by saying sincerely. Do you remember what that means in Spanish? Good. Atentamente. All right, here's our formal Spanish letter. Way to go! Finally, let's review our 10 new learned Spanish words from today's lesson. Here's our first one. Fecha, date. Estimado or estimada means esteemed, or when writing a letter, we would use it as dear. Querido or querida, dear. And we use this greeting when writing a letter in Spanish to show endearment. The next one. Interesar, interest. Corresponda, correspond. Escribo, I write. Comunicar, communicate. Adjunto, attached. Asistencia, assistance. And finally, atentamente, sincerely. Way to go! That's all for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!